Welcome, everybody, to another podcast by the Federal Way Symphony. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest artist for our upcoming concert, Mary Lynch Vanderkolk, who's going to join us for my favorite oboe concerto in the world by my favorite 20th century composer, Ralph Vaughan Williams. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk a little bit about the piece, what it's like to play it, the challenges it presents for the oboist, and sort of your journey with it. I believe you told me this is the first time you're actually going to be performing it. So take it away. Tell us a little bit about your perspectives.
Yes, that's right. This will be my first time performing it with orchestra, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I actually was supposed to perform it, I think, close to 15 years ago now, and the concert was canceled like 3 days before the first rehearsal or
Oh,
something. So I had worked up the piece, I was ready to go, and then didn't get to perform it. So it's been really nice to revisit it now, many years later. I find I always am able to go deeper with a piece, the second or third or fourth time that I've had the chance to really learn it. I think some of the most attractive qualities are it has this very spacious and freeing kind of feel, and Vaughan Williams is able to paint, beautiful pictures of what in my mind is like the English countryside. And I think about, my mind goes to when this piece was written. It was just approaching the end of World War II. So, it was a
I think
time
it
of
was
violence,
smack dab in the middle of it, kind of.
right? Oh, okay, right in the middle. So it was a time of turbulence and violence in Europe. And so I think of this piece as being a sort of a balm for that time, and it it has the ability to really transport you, I think, to a peaceful, freeing kind of place.
The Second World War happened. He was, oh, let's see, he was born in 1872. So he turned, what, 70 in the middle of the Second World War. And when he saw the signs of fascism growing in Germany and other horrible things happening in the governments of certain nations, he exploded in 1934 with his Fourth Symphony, which was the most dissonant, jagged, rough symphony that the English public had ever heard. During the Second World War, his two most major works were the Oboe Concerto and his Fifth Symphony, which, as you beautifully described it, were these balms of peace. And then, as soon as the Second World War was over, he wrote his Sixth Symphony, which was another horrific piece, which a lot of people speculated was his view of a world utterly decimated by war and bombs. And so during the war, he tried to heal. And as soon as the war was over, he sent up another warning flare. Let's never do this again.
And to think of, like, the notes on the page are kind of a reflection of my inner thoughts or Vaughan Williams' inner thoughts, and or just whoever is in the audience and listening. What things do you have ruminating in your head right now, and can this somehow be like food for that? But it certainly has. I'll just play the very opening cadenza. It has this sense of spaciousness and ease, and um, it really it kind of makes you think of the English countryside, something that's kind of shadowy, a little bit overcast, but with beautiful lush green hills. So it's a pretty
Oh, thank
expansive, beautiful opening.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. So in addition to these kind of improvisatory, very expansive lines, there are some elements of English folk music where he gets kind of jaunty, and I think of, people clanking together their beers at a pub. I'll just play a little bit of that jaunty melody that comes up later in the first movement. And it goes on a little bit like that
Mhm.
for a while. The second movement, I think, the second movement is very simplistic. It's rather short. Um, it's unlike any other oboe concerto kind of music I think I've ever heard. It makes me think a little bit of a Haydn symphony, in its simplicity. Um, and it's also quite interesting how he plays around with different modes. Um, it isn't just simply in a major or a minor key. We get a little bit of Lydian mode in there, and it gives the impression of a much older style, a much more primitive style of music, something um, that you might hear in Gregorian chant, something like that. So that's just the opening of the second movement. Um, Now, the third movement has a lot of busyness, a
Mhm.
lot of excitement, some fireworks. I'm going to save that for the concert. Because I think when I play, that's the kind of place that I try to play from. Something that I try to share, something that comes from within and that comes from a vulnerable place,
Mhm.
that isn't focused so much on how it's perceived, but just in like the purity of here it is.
Yeah,
um,
we're going to get along very well. That's very much. As a conductor, I never think in terms of what can I do to this piece, but what is the
yeah.
composer telling me to do? I'm happy to be his or her servant.
And that's
Um,
really what we are as musicians, I think. We're
yeah,
interpreters, um, storytellers and interpreters. That's
yeah.
something I find myself saying like a broken record.
And there's a wonderful quote from Antal Dorati, a conductor who's tends to be forgotten when we talk about the major ones of the 20th century, but he wrote a lot about conducting. He said something wonderful at one point. He said, "We, the conductors, we are not the interpreters. The audience members are the interpreters, and therefore it's our responsibility to do the most honest and sincere reading of the notes of the composer, so that every man and woman out there can arrive at their own interpretation."
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it too. Like, we're there to be an intermediary.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing your thoughts, your expertise, your lovely playing. We hope that this is enough of an enticement to all of you watching to come and hear this concert, which is also going to feature music by Johann Sebastian Bach, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and Morton Gould. The performance is 2:30 p.m. Sunday, October the 16th at the Federal Way Performing Arts Center. Please come and share in this celebration of great music and lovely performances.